Deep beneath the waters off the coast of the Philippines, Jonas Taylor leads his rescue team through the dark wreckage of a damaged submarine. The situation is desperate, as bodies lie scattered across the flooded compartments. But Jonas moves quickly, determined to save every survivor he can find. He spots a wounded soldier among the chaos and hoists the man onto his shoulders, pushing through the debris toward the rescue vehicle docked nearby. They are almost at the exit when something enormous strikes the submarine from outside. The hull shudders violently, sending everyone stumbling. Before anyone can understand what is happening, a massive creature slams into the side of the vessel again and again, its force denting and twisting the steel like tin foil. Jonas presses close to the wall and sees something that stops him cold, the unmistakable impression of giant teeth pressing through the bent metal, each tooth mark large enough to crush a man. The creature is circling the submarine and it is not leaving. In the panic that follows, Jonas tries to rally his team. The hatch leading back to some of the trapped crew members is jammed, and several men are stuck on the other side with no way out. Jonas prepares to go back for them, but he can see the situation clearly. The submarine is flooding fast, the monster is still hammering the hull, and he already has wounded survivors loaded into the rescue vehicle. If he opens the hatch again, he risks losing everyone. Faced with the worst choice of his life, Jonas makes his decision. He closes the hatch, sealing off the trapped men, and orders the submersible to surface. The men inside survive. The men left behind do not. The decision haunts him immediately. Dr. Heller, one of the team members who made it out, does not forgive him. Heller publicly blames Jonas for the deaths, calling his decision a cowardly one driven by panic or hallucination, rather than clear thinking. The accusations stick. Jonas cannot prove what he saw down there. The investigation leaves him branded as unreliable, and with no one willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, the former rescue diver eventually fades into a quiet and self-imposed exile in Thailand. A man who once saved lives, now spending his days in a dockside bar, trying to drink away the memory of the faces he left behind. 5 years pass. On the other side of the world, a state-of-the-art ocean research platform called Mana 1 floats in the waters near the Chinese coast. The facility is the centerpiece of an ambitious scientific project led by Dr. Zhang, and today the platform is buzzing with activity because the project's main financial backer, a wealthy investor named Morris, has flown in for a visit. Zhang meets him at the helipad and personally escorts him through the facility, taking him to meet the team one by one. Among the researchers is Zhang's daughter Suyin, a marine scientist with deep expertise in ocean biology. Morris meets the other team members as well. Mac, the operations chief who demonstrates the communication transmitter used to stay in contact with vessels below the surface, and Lori, the mission's lead pilot who is already suited up and preparing to climb into the submersible for the day's dive. Morris watches with interest as Lori and her crew descend into the water and begin their journey toward the bottom of the Mariana Trench. During the descent, Zhang explains the theory behind their mission to Morris. Most people believe the Mariana Trench is the deepest point on the planet, 11,000 meters down, but Zhang believes the scientific community has it wrong. His hypothesis is that the visible trench floor is actually a dense layer of hydrogen gas, and that the real ocean floor lies even deeper beneath it. If he is right, there is an entire ecosystem below the cloud layer that no human being has ever seen. Lori and her crew reach 11,000 meters and begin their descent through the gas cloud. The hydrogen layer is thick and opaque, but after a few more meters of careful navigation, the submersible breaks through to the other side and emerges into open water. It is completely dark, but when the crew activates their auxiliary lighting, the world below comes alive. Strange bioluminescent creatures drift past the porthole windows. New life forms never cataloged by science drift through the water in silence. Lori begins recording everything she sees, determined to document as much of this hidden world as possible. To explore the ecosystem more thoroughly, the crew deploys the ROV, a remote-operated probe controlled from Mana 1, and sends it deeper into the darkness. Back on the surface, DJ handles the controls while Toshi monitors the radar. Without warning, Toshi picks up a contact approaching fast on the screen. He calls out to DJ, but DJ sees nothing on the video feed. DJ switches on the ROV's auxiliary lights and almost immediately loses connection to the probe entirely. The screen goes dark. Before Lori's crew can figure out what just happened to their equipment, something hits their submersible as well. The impact is brutal. They lose all communication with Mana 1 and find themselves stranded 7 miles below the surface, completely cut off, with no one knowing exactly what struck them. Back on the platform, Mac quickly calls the team together to assess the situation. Heller confirms that all crew vital signs are still being monitored and that everyone down there is alive, but the rescue window is tight. The submersible has just over 18 hours of oxygen remaining. Engineer Jax lays out the brutal reality. No one has ever attempted a rescue at this depth. and the conditions make it effectively impossible. But Mac stops the conversation cold by pointing out that one man actually did perform a rescue at this depth, Jonas Taylor, in the Philippines 5 years ago. The name lands like a stone in still water. Heller immediately pushes back, dredging up the old accusations, calling Jonas unstable, and insisting that what happened in the Philippines was the result of a breakdown rather than a genuine encounter with a creature. But Zhang is not convinced. Whatever Lori encountered down there matches exactly what Jonas described in the Philippines. Zhang believes Jonas is the only person alive with the knowledge and the nerve to go back down. He orders a helicopter prepared and flies to Thailand himself, bringing Mac along. They find Jonas exactly where a man like him would be, sitting alone in a bar near the docks, living on cheap drinks and old regrets. Zhang and Mac sit down with him and make their case. Jonas refuses. He is done with rescues, done with the deep ocean, and done with being responsible for other people's lives in impossible situations. There is nothing they can say to change his mind. Then Mac plays him a video recording from the submersible, recent footage taken just before the crew lost communications. Jonas recognizes someone on screen immediately. The pilot is Lori, his ex-wife. Without another word, Jonas agrees to go. While Zhang flies Jonas back to Mana 1, the situation inside the stranded submersible is deteriorating. Lori and the crew manage to get the onboard computers rebooted and restore partial power to the vessel. The system coming back online brings some relief, but the crew knows they are still in serious trouble. They talk quietly to pass the time, trying to keep their nerves steady. Then, the creature returns. It slams into the submersible a second time, harder than before. The impact sends a screwdriver flying through the cabin, and it drives straight into Lori's stomach. The pain is immediate and severe. Breathing through it, Lori manages to identify something critical. The monster is attracted to light. Every time they have used their lighting systems, the attacks have followed. She orders the lights on Mana 1 turned off immediately. Lori checks the hull after the impact and finds what she feared. The submersible is leaking. The oxygen supply is being eaten up faster than expected. Knowing she cannot wait any longer for Jonas to arrive, Lori decides to take one of the smaller glider units stored in the submersible and head to the surface herself, planning to tow the rest of the crew up. DJ releases the glider on Lori's orders, and Suyin, who has traveled down from Mana 1 on her own glider, begins her descent toward the stricken vessel just as Jonas's helicopter touches down on the platform. The moment Jonas arrives, Heller runs the required medical clearance tests, and the two men argue from the start. Heller still does not trust him, but Jonas ignores the friction, goes through the checks, and gets himself cleared to dive. Before climbing into the submersible, he encounters Suyin's young daughter, Mei Ying, a bright and fearless little girl who knows exactly what is happening. She makes Jonas promise to bring her mother home safe. He gives her his word. Jonas launches. The moment his submersible hits the water, he freezes for several seconds, staring down into the abyss below him. The memory of what he saw in the Philippines is right there, pressing against the back of his mind. Then he forces himself to move. He shuts down every non-essential system on board, redirects every available unit of power to the thrusters, and drops into the deep at a speed that puts his body through enormous physiological stress. The pressure changes hammer his joints and organs as the vessel accelerates downward. A short distance below, Suyin reaches the trench floor and immediately makes a mistake. Not knowing that the creature hunts by light, she powers up every light on her glider to scan the darkness for the lost submersible. She finds it quickly and moves into position to fire the magnetic tow hook. Then something strikes her before she can pull the trigger. Before she can recover, a giant squid emerges from the dark and wraps itself around the glider's hull, squeezing steadily, driving the pressure inside the capsule toward its limits. Suyin tries to activate the pressure compensator and finds the system has been corrupted by the earlier impact. She cannot stop it. The sphere begins to crack. Then the squid disappears. Something has eaten it. Something enormous. In the glow of Suyin's lights, the shape materializes. A shark, but on a scale that defies comprehension. 25 meters from nose to tail, ancient and massive, moving through the darkness with the calm certainty of an apex predator that has no natural enemies. The Megalodon, the very creature that Jonas tried to warn everyone about for 5 years, the one that cost him his career and his reputation. It is here, and it is real, and it is heading straight for Suyin's capsule. Jonas reaches them just in time. Through the radio, he tells Suyin to shut off all her lights, but the system glitch means it will take 30 seconds for them all to go dark. The Megalodon is closing fast. Jonas fires a volley of flares directly at the damaged submersible, flooding it with bright light, drawing the creature's attention away from Suyin's glider and buying her those crucial 30 seconds. The shark turns toward the flares. Suyin's lights go dark. The Megalodon moves toward the submersible and away from the glider. Jonas orders Suyin to drop her ballast and go straight to the surface. She does, rising quickly through the water column. Jonas is now alone down there in the dark with the most dangerous animal that has ever existed. He docks with the stricken submersible, forces the hatch open, and begins pulling the crew out one by one. Just as he gets to Lori and pulls her free, the sonar starts screaming. The Megalodon is on its way back. There is no time. The crew still has one more member, Toshi. The navigator looks at the situation, looks at his friends, and makes his decision. He pushes back inside the submersible, seals the hatch from the inside, and powers up every light on board. The vessel blazes in the darkness like a lantern. The Megalodon turns toward it. Jonas, Lori, and the others race toward the surface. Toshi does not make it. The sacrifice gives everyone else the seconds they need to survive. Back on Mana 1, Jonas finds Heller waiting in the infirmary beside Lori's bed. The doctor looks him in the eye and apologizes for all the years of accusation and blame. Jonas takes it without bitterness. He bears no grudge. He only asks that Lori be properly taken care of. The team convenes for a debrief. Suyin explains what she observed about the Megalodon, its size, its behavior, its apparent attraction to light, and urges everyone to proceed carefully. Morris immediately shuts that conversation down. He has already lost $50 million worth of equipment in this incident. Greedy and impatient, the investor insists the project will not stop. He argues that once the world learns a living megalodon exists, every other research group on the planet will race to find it, and they will lose their advantage. Jonas cuts into the argument with something blunt and honest. If anyone else gets trapped down there, he is not going back in after them. Humans have no business fighting an animal of this size. The room falls quiet. While the adults argue in the control room, young Mei-Ying wanders through the platform's central corridor, the transparent shaft that looks out into the surrounding ocean. She comes face to face with the megalodon on the other side of the glass. The creature is enormous, pressing toward her, drawn by something she cannot understand. She screams. Jonas and Suyin run through the corridors and find her, then stand and watch as the shark turns away and begins feeding on a pod of whales just outside the facility. Jack starts running data on her computer and pieces together what happened. When Jonas's submersible raced through the hydrogen cloud layer during his rescue dive, it disturbed the gas layer enough to create a low-pressure zone, and that pressure differential sucked the megalodon upward and through the cloud into the open ocean. The creature has been living in the deep for millions of years. Now it is free, and it is heading wherever its hunger takes it. An emergency alert confirms the worst. 3 ships have sent distress signals and gone dark. The team takes a spare vessel out to the coordinates and arrives at a field of debris, what remains of a shark fishing boat, reduced to splinters and wreckage. The irony is not lost on anyone. The megalodon found the people who hunt sharks. Zhang proposes a plan. They will use a reinforced cage and harpoons loaded with a lethal dose of atorphine to drug and kill the creature. But first they need to track it, so they decide to plant a monitoring device in its dorsal fin. Suyin suggests someone swim out to the shark and place the tracker manually. If they move slowly and calmly, she believes the creature will not notice them. Jonas volunteers. He jumps into the water among the floating carcasses with the harpoon tracker in hand, connected to the boat by a thin safety line, and swims toward the monster. The megalodon dives without warning. Jonas pulls on his mask and looks down. And there it is, already below him, rising straight up. He fires the tracker into its dorsal fin just before it reaches him. Mission accomplished. DJ immediately activates the winch to pull Jonas back to the boat, but the sudden vibration in the water alerts the shark immediately. The megalodon turns and charges, driving toward Jonas at full speed. Mac pushes the boat engines as hard as the long return to Mana 1. DJ reels the line at maximum speed. The shark stays right behind Jonas, its jaws spreading wide, and Jonas is dragged aboard with barely a second to spare. The team sets up the polycarbonate cage immediately. Zhang loads the harpoons with enough atorphine to bring down something many times the size of the shark. Suyin climbs into the cage with a harpoon in her hands, and the cage goes into the water. The wall, the team's enormous and good-natured deckhand, throws buckets of chum into the water, and the blood scent draws in a school of smaller lemon sharks that begin circling the cage. Then the lemon sharks all disappear at once. Jax confirms from the tracker that the megalodon is less than 50 meters away. The shark comes from below. It drives its head straight up into the underside of the cage, crumpling the railing and knocking Suyin off her feet. She recovers, lines up the shot, and aims for the megalodon's eye, but the animal is too intelligent. It pulls back, waits, then surges in again and closes its jaws around the entire cage. Suyin is inside the mouth of the shark. She fires the harpoon into the soft tissue of the shark's mouth and shouts a warning to the crew above. The cage is inside the shark's jaws. Jonas dives into the water and follows the steel cable down toward the cage. At that exact moment, the crane detaches from the boat deck, sending a violent jolt through the cable. The sudden release causes the cage to drop out of the shark's mouth. Suyin's head slams into the broken railing on impact. Her mask cracks apart, and she begins losing oxygen at a rate that will render her unconscious within seconds. The cage starts sinking toward the bottom. On the boat, the Wall and the others use the ship's second crane to rig a trap, dangling bait into the water to lure the Megalodon directly into the steel cable. Jonas reaches the cage, forces it open, and pulls Suyin free just as the cage drops away into the deep. Swimming back toward the surface, Jonas looks down and sees the Megalodon turning toward them. Two people exposed in open water with nowhere to hide and nothing between them and the creature. The shark drives upward with its mouth open. The steel cable catches around its fin, snapping taut and dragging the creature sideways. The Megalodon thrashes, pulling against the cable, fighting to reach Jonas and Suyin, and then, slowly, the atorphine already in its system begins to take hold. The animal slows, its movements lose their terrible coordination. A few meters below the two swimmers, the Megalodon rolls onto its side and goes still. It is dead. Jonas brings Suyin to the surface. Hours later, she wakes up and finds that the team has somehow managed to haul the entire carcass of the Megalodon up onto the deck of the ship. The Wall wants a photograph and calls Jonas over to stand next to the body of the fish for a victory picture. DJ nudges the crane at just the wrong moment and bumps the Wall off the deck and into the ocean below. Everyone laughs at the accident until the water erupts. A second and even larger Megalodon rises from below and swallows the Wall whole in a single bite. Then it slams into the hull of the ship. The weight and force of two enormous animals against the vessel's structure is too much to withstand. The boat capsizes. The entire crew is thrown into the water, completely exposed to the new predator beneath them. Heller and Jax surface far from the others and begin swimming back through open water. Even moving slowly and carefully, the second Megalodon detects their presence. Heller looks at Jax, makes his decision, and begins thrashing and splashing wildly in the water, drawing the shark's full attention to himself. The Megalodon takes him. Jax reaches the overturned hull and climbs up with the surviving crew members, alive. The survivors know they cannot stay on the overturned hull indefinitely. They drag out life rafts and begin the long return to Mana 1. On the platform, they find Morris waiting with news he claims is reassuring. He says he has already contacted the Chinese government and told them about the Megalodon, and that guided missile cruisers have been dispatched to destroy it. Morris announces he will shut Mana 1 down until the shark is eliminated, and that a rescue ship will arrive the following morning. But Morris does not wait for any rescue ship. He quietly loads a helicopter with hundreds of pounds of demolition charges and takes off alone. He finds what appears to be the Megalodon near the surface and begins dropping everything he has. Bomb after bomb, the water churning and exploding beneath the helicopter. When the foam settles, his pilot confirms a kill. Morris sends a man into the water to retrieve a tooth as a souvenir. The man surfaces empty-handed. There are no teeth. Morris checks the tracker reading and goes cold. He did not kill the Megalodon. He killed a whale, and the tracker is showing the Megalodon directly beneath the helicopter. Morris orders the pilot to accelerate. He stands and moves toward the door without holding on, and at that moment the helicopter banks sharply. Morris loses his footing and falls out into the open ocean. The Megalodon is right there waiting. Back on Mana 1, Mac checks into Morris's claims and discovers what the survivors already suspected. There are no missile cruisers coming. Morris lied about everything. Jonas looks around at the remaining team and makes a quiet decision. They are going to handle this themselves. They take control of the research vessel and follow the tracker signal. The Megalodon is moving at speed towards Sanya Bay, one of the most heavily populated resort beaches on the entire coast of China. Thousands of tourists are already in the water. The team docks as quickly as they can and starts working through their final plan. DJ sets up a cell phone in a waterproof casing, running an audio file that mimics the acoustic signature of a whale. They lower the device into the water near the boat and wait. On the beach, the holiday crowd has no idea what is approaching. The attack begins without warning. The Megalodon launches itself fully out of the water and swallows a crowded tourist raft in one pass. The beach explodes into screaming and chaos. People scramble desperately for shore. In the chaos, a man trapped inside a large inflatable water ball tries to roll to safety, but is swallowed whole before he can get 10 meters. The shark cuts toward the center of the panicking crowd still clustered in the water, moving in for the mass of people. Then DJ activates the whale call on the cell phone. The Megalodon's enormous head turns instantly toward the sound, and it veers away from the swimmers, heading toward the boat. The crowd in the water is saved. Jonas and Suyin suit up and drop into the ocean in their gliders, positioning themselves on either side to intercept the shark. Jonas lines up a missile shot as the Megalodon rushes toward him, but the creature is too close to the boat at that moment. Firing would destroy the vessel, and everyone's still on board. He peels away and leads the shark through a shallow coral reef, navigating the uneven terrain at speed while the massive animal stays right behind him. He clips the ballast of his glider on a coral formation and partially loses control, but manages to recover and continues drawing the shark away from the boat. Suyin moves into position and fires a missile directly into the Megalodon's open mouth at close range. The impact is perfectly placed. The shark absorbs the explosion without slowing. It keeps coming. The detonation draws the attention of television news helicopters that have been circling over the bay, and they immediately abandon their footage of the beach and swing toward the ship to record the confrontation directly. Two of the pilots get too close to each other in their rush. Their aircraft collide mid-air. Both helicopters explode. One of the burning wrecks drops directly onto the research ship, and the entire remaining crew is forced to jump into the water below. Suyin surfaces amid the wreckage and thinks immediately of Mei Ying. She swims toward the debris and finds her daughter safe and sound with DJ, holding on to floating wreckage. Below the surface, Jonas is still alive, still in his partially damaged glider, still keeping the Megalodon occupied and away from the survivors in the water. He makes his final decision. He is finished trying to wound this animal from a safe distance. There is only one way this ends. Jonas turns his glider directly at the underside of the Megalodon and accelerates to full speed. The shark reacts, turning to meet him head-on, but Jonas flips the nose of the glider downward at the last second and passes beneath the creature. The broken piece of metal from the glider's damaged ballast tears open the Megalodon's belly from front to back, cutting a massive wound across its entire underside. Even with its stomach ripped open, the creature still has enough force left to slam Jonas with its tail fin and engulf the shattered remains of the glider capsule in its mouth, crushing it. The capsule is gone. Jonas is floating alone in open water with nothing but the ocean around him. He swims to the broken ballast section drifting nearby, pries the metal stake free, grabs onto the shark's massive face with his other hand, and drives the steel directly into the Megalodon's eye. The creature convulses once violently, then goes still. Within moments, dozens of smaller sharks converge from every direction, drawn by the enormous amount of blood now spreading through the water, and begin tearing the carcass apart. Jonas surfaces. He finds Suyin nearby and brings her back with him to the living. The surviving team gathers together in the water, holding on to debris and each other, looking around at what remains of their boats, their equipment, and everything else. They are exhausted and reduced in number compared to where they started, but they are alive. The most dangerous predator in the history of the oceans sinks toward the seafloor in pieces. They hold on to each other and celebrate the only way people can after something like that, quietly, with a relief that does not quite feel real yet. In the days that follow, everyone returns to their lives and goes on as normal. The research continues. The ocean keeps its ancient silence, and somewhere far below the hydrogen cloud layer, in the lightless depths of the trench, the dark water waits, patient and still, until the next thing comes up from it.